Magugu, you've explained that it's important to look at the contract at tender stage and not after award. Um, let's assume we are now at tender stage. Which clauses do I want to be looking at?
Look, there's a few key clauses, and I think I touched on this a little bit earlier on. Your payment clauses become very important. You need to understand how you are going to be paid by the client, how your works will be evaluated. So it's not only about the money that you're going to get, but remember, it's about cash flow management. You manage your cash flow properly, you are able to get working capital as a contractor so that you can execute the works. But also as the client, what it allows you is to plan your cash flow so that you can pay your contractor accordingly so that the contractor can then execute the works in the way that they're supposed to execute it. So it goes for both sides. So payment clause is very important. Priority of documents is one that's very important and one that I've seen many disputes over the past. And I'll make a simple example. You might find that within your priority of documents within a contract, it says that your specifications, which falls within your scope of works, takes precedence over your bill of quantities. The bill of quantities goes and says, I'll use an example of freehold distance for film material is 5 kilometers. You price it at 5 kilometers because that's what you see in your BOQ. However, when you read your scope of works, it says that your freehold distance is 8 kilometers, but you priced it at 5. You're now executing the works. You are seeing a shortfall, so you are under recovering as a contractor. You go to your client and you say, my BOQ says this is how I priced it. However, priority says that the specification at tender stage scope of 8 kilometers. Had you read your contract, you would have raised this as a clarification point, sorted it out then, and given the high price.
Okay. All right. So let's go into a different scenario now. I'm a contractor. I'm not in agreement with the employer. We've spoken. We've reached a point where we cannot agree. How do I handle this? How do I proceed from there?
So typically within your contract, saying you will find a dispute resolution clause. What I'm finding more often than not, outside of the general conditions that you typically find within your FIDIC contracts and or JBCC and others as well, is that clients and contractors are building in what I would call an internal resolution procedure before moving outside of this internal resolution procedure between the parties. What do I mean by it? You would find that it goes and says that representatives to the contract for either party, so it may be, let's call it the principal agent for the client, and it may be a contracts manager for a contractor, get given time, and there's a time limit to it. It could be 5 days, 10 days, whatever the parties agree to in the contract to sort out an issue. Should they not be able to sort it out, they move to the next line of management, and that could be general managers of either party. They get given a certain amount of time to deal with the issue. Then it may move to the CEOs of either party. If the CEOs of either party cannot meet have a meeting of minds, then typically that's when they would go outside of the parties and find an independent party, whether it's through mediation, if the contract calls for it, adjudication, if the contract calls for it, or arbitration if the contract calls for it, to go seek resolution so that then a ruling can be made and the issue can be sorted out.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Magugu, for joining us today. This has been very informative. But just going back to what CCRS does, what is the difference between what you do and what the legal team would do? So I understand you are not a legal firm.
Yeah.
This is not legal advice. Can you just clarify that for us, please?
No, thank you for clarifying that, Ntabise. Look, I studied quantity surveying. That's what I do. I've played in the construction game for over 18 years, working for 2 big construction companies. I also dabbled in manufacturing quite a bit from an operations point of view. So our key thing, and I always say this is my happy place, and this is why I came back to it, is contracts management. So managing contracts, which then projects, whether it's a construction project, whether it's an engineering project, whether it's for the client, the owner, or the employer, as they are sometimes called, whether it's for a contractor, whether it's for the subcontractor, to ensure that the rights and obligations of the party that I'm representing, and even the party that is my counterparty on the other side, are observed over the life of the project so that we can execute the works properly and ultimately hand over a successful project. I feel that it's very key as we are working on the project from the start to the end to have such a service to ensure that we minimize or we mitigate disputes over the life of the contract. So that's what we do. We come in, deal with contracts management so that we've got healthy end-to-end contractual relationships with our clients always. Whereas a lawyer typically, and this is absolutely nothing against lawyers, generally you would find general practitioners who are lawyers. They may not fully understand construction, so you would need to have an expert who then explains to them so that they can give you legal representation. But typically that's when something has gone wrong. So the relationship has soured. There's a dispute that needs to be sorted out, and more often than not, it's in the courts. I find that it's too late at that point in time, and the project may be pending. So it's good to contractually manage your project as we are going through proper contracts management services, which is what we provide.
Okay. Thank you. This has been very interesting. I think you've also exposed us to the other side of quantity surveying, where instead of measuring and dealing with bills of quantities, you can also go into construction contracts.
Okay. So Magugu, how does one get hold of you and the services of CCRS?
The public can reach me on my email address, which is magugu@ccrsconsult.com. And you can also visit our website, which is www.ccrservices.co.za.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think we've all learned a lot. Thank you.
Yeah.